Hello and welcome to Dungeons and Dragons, the good version.
The good
There have
version.
been a few renditions of Dungeons and Dragons.
I only know one.
One of my favorites was an old, like 80s, Christians against like Dungeons and Dragons movie where they treated Dungeons and Dragons like it was, sex and drugs at college. It was I don't remember the name, but it's highly entertaining.
Mazes and Monsters, that's what it was.
That's it. Yeah,
I
that's
know
it.
that because it was Tom Hanks's like first movie, and so it's like has that weird like
Strange.
thing because of it.
Um, but yeah, we watched Dungeons and Dragons, the newest version, Honor Among Thieves. Um, and I really loved it. I feel like this movie really last week we talked about Super Mario, right?
Mhm.
And my criticism was it didn't just totally accept what it was. Um, this movie does. And obviously they have a lot more culture and sort of actual story lore to pull from. But I thought they did a great job encapsulating like an actual good story with good writing, um, but with that sort of D&D ragtag feel of misfits, like your group. And they have that scene with uh was it the maze or whatever, where all of the different groups are running to survive in the Coliseum.
Mm.
That's it. And it just feels like not a generic, fantasy film. Whereas the what was it, the 2000 version, which I mean, it was terrible for a lot of reasons, but it really just took on the generic fantasy vibe. And for me, this movie actually just accepted that it was sort of a role-playing game, and you could sort of see that the main group of people were more of they had more variety. They could attempt things in many different ways, and you could see that that you're only seeing one variation, whereas some of the other background characters and like the enemies, that are more like NPCs, don't really they have a main script, and I thought that was great. Um, but I'm curious what you think. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of it.
It is interesting. I enjoyed this film too, but this is I feel like I don't want to like be back. I feel like I'm accidentally gonna like start like backhanding the film, and I don't want to. But like, I feel like I liked it for a lot of the similar reasons to why I liked the Mario movie, where I I felt that both I to me I felt like both had a similar thing though different in that they had like slightly Mario more so, Mario definitely more so, but like a slightly cliched script that's made up for by like a fantastic world and cast. Like I like I said, I genuinely liked it, but it is funny to me. I think it's more says more about my opinion of the Mario movie than about this movie, but I was thinking a little bit about that afterwards. I felt like both work in similar ways to each other. But yeah, sorry. Slight
Y-
tangent. I enjoyed the film as well.
Yeah, I mean, Declan, I think you're pretty much spot on. I would say though that for me, Dungeons and Dragons, it gets the edge just ever so slightly over the Mario movie. I think part of it is because, weirdly enough, it's because I knew more about Mario
Mm,
than D&D. Like, I don't know that much about Mario to begin with, but it was marginally more than, the D&D world and everything like that. And so it kind of helped alleviate some of those expectations that I had going into this.
mm,
when I first saw the trailer for Honor Among Thieves, I was like, no, like, okay, I don't need to see it.
Mm.
But as we got closer, we obviously had that kind of silly debate in the group text on what we should do between splitting up Mario and Honor Among Thieves. But yeah, look, both were enjoyable films for their own in their own ways, but I just thought the cast was slightly better in this one. I thought the story kind of leaned more into the game, sort of like what Ben said, in a better way. And I found that I liked another similar adaptation like Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, the new one. Kind of leaned into that, like, oh yeah, we're gonna portray what the game might be like in so and so year. And so like that's cool. And I think it's done well. But yeah, I just gotta give the slight edge in almost every category that kind of matters to me to Honor Among Thieves, but ever so slightly. It, yeah.
I definitely think it was a great idea to sort of have it not quite in the middle of the story, but like a lot like actual D&D, like where like each character is somewhat like it's like it almost seems like I think I saw this said before, but like it seems like these are characters who have like this is like the second story for these characters or something like that. Not actually, but like yeah, just like this isn't like these characters' origins. This is like just them on the adventure still. And I again, I feel like that added to the Dungeons and Dragons feel of it, which and I thought that was a good plus.
All these characters have backstories, which is the same as like anybody playing D&D, creates backstories for the characters, where they're from, where they've been, who they are. So that's why especially Chris Pine's character, I love, he's an ex harper who's now a bard, it's that's a classic D&D sort of backstory. And I really love that they sort of lean into like their characters' strengths, not just like I mean, obviously the bard is going to be worse at fighting than the warrior or whatever.
Yeah.
But they really do lean into the attributes of D&D that be present in, a campaign, and the whole story itself is a giant campaign. You're given a bad guy a task to do.
You have to go find something to complete the task that you need to do.
Yep. And even with what's his name? The Thayan.
I just saw the film and I'm totally
He's
blanking.
something. It starts with a Z.
Zep? No, I never mind.
I don't.
We're totally blanking on it. Dang it. The thing.
But him, he's so very like. You talk about being cliche. In Mario, it doesn't really fit as much because like nobody talks in Mario. That doesn't exist. But in D&D, you do have sort of NPCs. Played by like the DM, the dungeon master, who he'll put on a backstory for those characters, but they're very regimented. They have a goal or an explanation, but like I said, they're a linear sort of thing, and you can mess with it just like the sorcerer did. I'm liking his name, and break the bridge. Like he has this elaborate plan that he wants the people to go through, and they just ruin it. They just say, no, I'm not doing that. It's just something that does happen. You sometimes come up with some convoluted way to get past something, and everyone else who's playing the game is like, no, I'm not doing that.
Plus also, even though it makes sense in the story, if you look at it on paper, like Olga Kilgore's like love being like a halfling and like and
Yeah.
like in like her seeming to have like a thing specifically for halflings, that's like actually very in line with how people I feel like play D&D.
Yeah, it's like just a very specific detail,
Yeah.
that they have to repeat, that
Yeah. Though the only way that this could have been a true D&D truly capture the D&D is if one person was a total sociopath who like constantly tried to steal from other people and then murder like specifically
you know,
innocent people at every chance.
it's funny that you say that because in a strange way, Hugh
Mhm.
Grant's character, Forge, is that character.
True, that's actually very true. Like that's a good point. Like
And,
in terms
and
of
that was the next thing I was gonna bring up is he was like originally an adventurer and then he goes off and does his own thing. But yeah, it's definitely a typical like D&D, that one guy is just like screw it all.
yeah.
And you can see it in like even the way he acts.
Mm.
It's that sociopathic, like I don't really care. Like, yeah, I love this girl. No, I'll kill her right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a complete disregard for any life because it's a game.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, so I thought it was really clever. Like the
Mm.
the main bad guy, the red priest.
Mm.
Um, she's obviously more of an NPC, just like static. Not an actual player.
Mhm.
But yeah, Forge is definitely a player.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually a very good point. Hell, even the also like I credit where it's due. Like the opening scene where like they get out using how did they vary? It's like Jonathan. It wasn't Jonathan. It was like Jonathan or something. Jonathan. I think that's what the Eagle Man's name was. Where they like just grab onto him and like
Oh
jump
yeah,
out
yeah.
a window. Again, that's sort of the like creative thinking that like a good D&D group would have hopefully
Yeah.
for getting out of
And
situations.
also like the fact that they got approved anyway. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
class.
that was such a
Like
strange thing. That was great, but like the apology. Sorry about that. I will also. I will, oh my gosh. I will also say I just like I appreciate that I felt like the fight scenes were pretty good as well. Just like
yeah,
generally
actually,
like
I'm glad you brought that up because I thought they were actually really good.
yeah
They
like
weren't like typical action scenes. They were practical
yeah.
scenes.
It felt like actual stunt performers were and fight
It was,
choreographers,
yeah. I mean,
which I think
any of the stuff that's not really magic and whatever,
mm,
um, that's all actual practical.
yeah, I think that is something that like that I you could very easily imagine a worse version of the film that just did the standard everyone is very clearly CGI thing for its action scenes, and so I appreciate that it's like actual
And not just like practical, like you have some people that do practical effects, obviously, but their choreography is like terrible and like
yeah.
nothing makes sense.
Mhm.
It seemed like they actually had like a martial artist come in, or
Mhm.
good stunt guy, uh, who understands how to fight
Yeah.
to come in and do the fight scenes
Mhm.
because they don't look, washy-washy, like, just people flying over all over the place. Uh,
Mhm.
they seem actually legit moves, and they are
Mhm.
a lot of them legit moves.
I think the yeah I like it's but it is funny also like as you said Michelle Rodriguez's Olga does basically all of it while Chris Pine's Ed, who's a bard, just I don't does he do any actual fighting in it like
Yes, he does. He
a
hits
little
them
bit.
with his loot a few times,
Yeah, that's it, but that's like the main thing of
which
it.
is classic D&D. It's like they're equipped with a loot, so
Mm.
you hit them with a loot. Your stats are terrible, but
Gotta
every
do
now
what you
and then you'll
can.
get that one. And he also has the sort of like charisma to sort of get people to listen to him, to distract people and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, that is kind of. I think the film does, for the most part, a pretty good job. Like that's a very good point about like inspiring and causing people to turn away. I feel like the film does a good job at like incorporating D&D stuff, but you don't need to know about the D&D stuff
Yeah,
as
I think
well.
it's really, really smart in that like if you don't know any of this stuff, it doesn't matter. It's still
Mhm.
just a fun film.
Mhm.
But for people that know D&D, it's actually rewarding.
Mhm.
Um, as opposed to like the Mario film, I feel like is sort of rewarding. You know, you see the references, but it's not like you're playing the game. You know, it
Mhm.
doesn't give you, aside from the nostalgia of seeing some of the stuff, it doesn't give you that feeling.
Yeah.
This movie actually does give you the feeling of playing the game.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and I think that's something that a successful video game adaptation should do,
Mhm.
especially one that's as old and as the not video game, but just game adaptation. Obviously, this is
Mhm.
it's not a board game. It's I guess it is a board game in a way, but
Yeah.
it's like
It's like tabletop, but like that's such a. I feel like it's. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cornerstone
it's a
of tabletop.
role-playing game. Um, but obviously a lot of these things have been incorporated into later, video games like Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, and all that stuff,
Basically, any
and
RPG.
RPG, Dragon Age, whatever. Dragon Age is a great example. Like some of the Bethesda titles, their first few games were actually Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter, um, games set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe.
Mhm. Mhm. I also do got to give credit where it's due as well. I really enjoyed the world itself. I feel like 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 it felt like fantasy, like sort of like cliched fantasy, but not like a parody or anything like that. Like it felt legit kind of, and I appreciated that it felt like effort went into making the world just kind of click together well, and that was
Yeah.
good. Like each location felt memorable and not like kind of just some it didn't feel like a very clear green screen that every single actor was standing on, or anything like that.
Yeah.
They clearly weren't sets, and I think some location, but yeah, that's sort of what I mean.
No, they do a great job.
Mm,
Looks like a fantasy, but yeah, not a cliche looking fantasy, like a sort of lived in world that, it should be, given that, a lot of people look at it like that. They play these games and it's like they're living in the world. So
mm,
to accomplish that on screen, I think is hard but really important to the film.
mm, mm, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Also, I just one other thing. I like also give credit to Chris Pine. I feel like for I feel like he gave a good performance here as
Yeah.
well. Like I think
Good.
he he despite them making a joke about him not do it, like just coming up with plans and all that. Like now that I think about it, it's like he never actually felt like a guy who did nothing for the team or anything
Oh,
like
he's constantly like doing things. It's just, a lot of times he's failing. And then also is typical D&D. It's like, oh, you go this way. Oh, no, there's a block here. You gotta go this way. Oh, no, sorry.
oh, we have access to a portal gun. Let's use
Yeah,
that.
let's use that.
That's the most. I cannot remember like that. I, do, does the portal gun actually exist in D&D, or did they just?
I don't think
Yeah,
so, but like that's also typical D&D. You know, they have a background, but it's like people can bring whatever they want. It's up to
yeah, yeah.
the group of players playing and the dungeon master. You
Mm,
play whatever you want. You can say, "Hey, I have this gun here,
mm.
or tither, mortal gun."
The
Uh,
staff is actually literally the portal gun.
it's actually just from Portal.
The most really fantastic to see, like, to see this, this famous video game thing like adapted so well to screen and used phenomenally as well. It's like they set it up, and then its appearance in set pieces becomes important to the story
Yeah,
overall.
I think that's nice.
Yeah.
And that's actually good. That
Mm.
they have that, and it's not like they forgot about that.
Yes, yes.
Typical Hollywood fashion. A lot of people would be like, "Oh, we have this," and then they just never use it again
Or
after.
it breaks
the-
instantly or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man,
And
like
then
that.
it would be cliche, right? Like the bridge breaks, you get over, and it's like, okay, well, that's
It's like,
uh,
oh no, we just destroyed it. Oops, that happened.
but then you have it again, and you try to use it.
Mhm,
It's sort of like the dungeon master when it doesn't work correctly.
mhm.
The DM's like, no, no, it's it, but all of a sudden it falls over. You can really feel like, the presence of that, DM like messing with the world.
Mhm. In the sequel, I think in the sequel they should. I think this is a completely uncontroversial opinion. They should have the characters interact with a bunch of like new characters where it slowly becomes apparent until midway through the twist is revealed, a la the Lego movie, that the new characters are characters created and played by the Muppets. Like I think they got to do that, and then they show the Muppets playing D&D, and then it's revealed that, like,
Specifically the Muppets.
yeah. It's like there's an idea for a Muppets movie where they're playing D&D, and it's like the D&D this
Yep.
franchise should make that for the sequel.
You've got a
They should
great,
do it with Mario characters playing
Oh my
D&D.
god, that's even better. That's even
got a
better.
great script for Robot Chicken there.
Hey, hell yeah. Yeah. So, and like and one of the characters would be having the absurd Italian accent that's actually
Imagine Chris Pine's character just going out of the middle of nowhere. Let's go.
yeah, that'd be fantastic.
All right,
I would be I would stand up and cheer at that moment.
before we get too sidetracked,
Fair.
I don't
My
have
fault.
anything else to say. I just genuinely really enjoyed the movie. I feel like you don't need to know anything. And the more the better it gets, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think yeah, it's a great time. It is honestly a great time. It's like it's an incredibly, like, as I think about it, it's an incredibly skillful adaptation of D&D in like, because, like I said, you don't have to know it's an adaptation of D&D
Yeah.
time. So I think it's kind of like a film all people who are looking for a fantasy film to watch can enjoy.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Ben, I think you said it kind of best. Like it's a film that knows what it is, and definitely dives into it and owns that. And I think Mario, to a certain extent, also does this too, but D&D more. It's like it's a film that never takes itself too seriously, and so it's kind of one of those films where it's like, yeah, there's stuff to critique, but it falls into the category of, is it really worth nitpicking? Because like they know they're not trying to do something that they're not. It's doing exactly what it should. It's entertaining, it's funny, there's some good action, like not a standout villain, but I don't think you can really expect that.
Well, no, and I think that's
And like that's what makes it like an enjoyable watch. You don't have to go in thinking too hard. You don't have to come out thinking like, oh my God, what just happened? Like it's a very easy film. And I think Declan, you used the word accessible. It is exactly that. And there's nothing wrong with having films like that. It's kind of nice actually to have a film that is so disconnected from everything else, that you can kind of just go in and and watch a movie, like sitting down on like a Sunday afternoon and popping this into the Blu-ray, or now it'd be streaming, but you know what I mean, like sitting down and just watching a movie just because it exists, it's there, and you're like, oh yeah, sure.
I would say the only thing about Mario is the identity of the game is held in the references,
Sure.
whereas in this movie, I feel like the whole thing just encapsulates Dungeons and Dragons. You know, it's not just like nostalgia references. Whereas Mario, like, is very in your face about it. Like you guys said, you don't need to know the references, and it's still entertaining, which I guess still probably true to plenty of people for the Mario film. But I just enjoyed the Dungeons and Dragons film a lot more.
Yeah.
I guess because I feel like it just makes more sense to make a D&D film than a Mario film, because Mario has no dialogue, not really any plot other than princess is taken by Bowser. And then you go to like 5 castles, the previous 4 don't have her. And that's about it. That's the story. But yeah, that's it. Dungeons and Dragons, it's entertaining. If you're looking for fantasy film, go out and watch it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Be,
All right.
be here next time where we talk about a film that's maybe sci-fi, maybe fantasy. What could it be? What could it be? It's
Dune, the David Lynch movie.
Be on the lookout for it, everyone.
All right. See you next week.
And
Bye.